So we are going to start. Welcome to the DISC Personality Profile Assessment Training. Let's start with what is DISC. So DISC is a personality assessment training program that is comprised around main personality traits: dominance, influential, steadiness, and conscientiousness. This program has separated the different classes of personalities into these main categories, and then it allows us to evaluate where in those categories do we predominantly fall by a primary and then a secondary category. So your primary will typically be your most prominent, and your secondary generally comes in when you would be under pressure. It's almost like pulling more out of your personality in order to accommodate a situation that is a little more challenging. It's used to improve communication, teamwork, and self-awareness. Why it's such an important tool, why I've always enjoyed training on this and having this as part of our organization, is that if you want a strong team and you want a good collaboration, we've done this training before. We've always talked about negotiation and so on. If you're going to be working with somebody, a negotiation, again, is always an exchange of power. Whoever has the most power, the most information, the strongest footing is going to win a negotiation. And there's a power struggle in everything that happens. If you don't believe me, ask your wife, your husband, where you want to go for dinner. There's going to be a power exchange. You want something, he or she wants something, and there's going to be an exchange of communication until a decision's made. But we are all self-interested beings, and we all want to have a positive outcome that's going to suit our needs. Of course, we all love others. We want to do our best, and that's all great. But in the end, we want to be happy. Everyone's happy. So, overview of the four main types, starting with dominance. So dominance is focused on results, confident, and they are very direct. They're typically motivated by challenges and taking control. So like, you ever heard the term like grabbing the bull by the horns? That would be a very strong category that would say that person would be, whoever's grabbing the bull by the horns is dominant. Influential. These people are sociable, they're outgoing and enthusiastic. They're typically motivated by social recognition and relationships. So I like to think of influential people as like salespeople. They're great communicators. When you're at a party, they're usually the loudest people. They're laughing, they're engaging with people, they're asking lots of questions. Those are influential. Steadiness. These people are cooperative, patient, and dependable, okay? And they value stability, support, and collaboration. I always think about these since the very first day when I started learning about this program and started training it. I think of nurses or support staff. If you guys are in the business of hiring an administrative assistant, you'll probably notice the administrative assistants that are already in your organization, if they are on, I would say like on brand for their role, unless their role has particular metrics in it that may not necessarily be just administrative support, but generally speaking, if it's an administrative support, they're going to be on the sociable side of things. When you go to a hospital and you be cared for by a nurse, steadiness. These people tend to be like more empathetic, caring. They'll put other people first and ask a lot of questions. Then there's conscientious. These people are detail-oriented, they're analytical, and they're systematic. So they're highly motivated by accuracy and quality. These are your scientists, your engineers, your quality control people. So if, for example, like when I'm working with people in the investment side of things, like rental properties, typically speaking, my strong investors, the ones that are doing this professionally and they're looking to make really good investments, these people typically are on the conscientious side. So that just summarizes the four main categories. Now we're going to dive into each personality type a little more in depth. And starting, the whole purpose of this next exercise is I want you to listen to the cues and think about, where do you sit? Where do you fit in this? The most important part of the DISC assessment when you're learning it is to know what's your DISC. Now, there is a place, I know Tony Robbins has it online, and we can share the link later for a free assessment. And this link will give you the ability to do the test. There's an actual test, and it'll tell you where you are in your DISC personality profile. So good example, me, I'm a DI. I'm highly dominant and influential. So I like to do training, so I can do things. However, when you're coming to me with a sales pitch, or you're trying to bring something to my attention, get it done quickly. I don't want any fluff. I want compact details so I can make a decision and move on. It's a big part of my personality. So on the dominant side, strengths. These people are confident, decisive, and results driven. As I just mentioned, dominant people, they want to have the facts. They want to have the information provided to them in a way that is simple, that is concise, and that is to the point. Like, you ever heard a person when you're talking to them and they go, get to the point? Probably dominant, because it takes a dominant person to say that. It's not that they don't care. It's not that they don't like what you have to say, but they're communicating with you that they don't want the fluff. The fluff actually irritates them. So the challenges. So now we're going to go into the challenges with them. They can be perceived as impatient or blunt, as I just mentioned. Everybody can think in this training session, somebody in their lives that they have been communicating with, and they answered something like, get to the point, or move it along, or hurry up, like, let's get this done. Or they'll interrupt you in the middle of like a long-winded explanation. If you're trying to get an agreement on something, they're like, listen, I get it, but like, can we just condense it, right? So people will sometimes perceive that as impatient or blunt. Now, the next part of the exercise, not right now, but in just a moment, I'm going to cover with you guys some of the crossovers and some of the personalities that work well together, some that don't work well together. And also, what are the implications of some of the personalities, that actually are good with everybody, generally speaking. So the best way to communicate with a dominant person, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be direct, to the point, and focus on the tasks and the outcomes. Generally speaking, a dominant person is also focused on, like, what's the point? Why am I doing this? Right? They don't like to do things if there's no objective. Because they're dominant, they tend to be goal oriented and result driven. So make sure that when you're communicating with a person who is dominant, if you guys are going to try to do something, what's the point? What's the outcome? And what's in it for everybody? And once you have that, these people will be all in and they'll take the charge. They typically do leave a wake of disorder behind them, because it's like cutting through a jungle, They're not worried about like picking up what they take and then putting stuff back in. No, they're like hack. I got to get over there as quickly as possible. That's where I'm going. It's done. That's dominant. And by the way, if anybody has any questions as I'm moving along, don't be shy, interrupt. Because this is a great, there's a lot of information that comes into this, and you may have something that you thought about somebody in your life and so on. Don't be shy. Go ahead. On the influential side of things, these people's strengths, typically they're charismatic, persuasive, and they're people focused. So as I mentioned earlier, they're the life of the party. They're great communicators. They typically make really good salespeople because they have a good balance. They do have some dominant traits and some steadiness traits to them. But one of the things about them is they can get lost a little bit in their communication. They like stories. They like details. They like to tell. On the influential side that I have, which is funny because I'm dominant, so to the point, so on. But in communication, I love telling stories. I love engaging and dynamic. I love people's tones. If somebody's talking very monotone, I almost like start to tune out if it's not really short and sweet. So some of the challenges you'll find with influential people, or dealing with influential people, or you may find challenging with you if you are influential, is you may overlook details or be disorganized. That is one of the most prominent traits. And if you know me, you'll know that I can be disorganized at times. That's why I rely very heavily on my support staff, my team members, my family members, people that know me well, to keep me on track, to make sure that I'm not communicating and getting off track and then losing track of time. And that I don't overlook details, because details are super important. So we'll leave it there. The best ways to communicate with them is to engage socially, to show enthusiasm, and to be friendly. Influential people like relationships. Is the best way to summarize it. So not everything has to have a purpose or a reason. They're happy to communicate just to communicate. So if you're having a bad day, an influential person is a great person to have a conversation with. Probably not a dominant person, Dominant person is gonna be like, okay, how do we solve this problem? What's the issue? Give it to me quick, and let's fix this. And I probably won't be perceived all that well. So this is the fun thing about the DISC assessment is it has a really good application at home as well. Number 3, steadiness. Their strengths, these people are loyal, they're patient, and they're great listeners. So again, going back to the nurses, if you're having a bad day, there's influential, but the best people to talk to are going to be your steadiness or sociable. The interchangeable terms that are used on this part of the assessment is steadiness or sociable. There's no other way to encompass the personality of a sociable person other than loving, caring, kind, and highly accepting. That's why you'll find them in the service fields. And their loyalty is up there. Challenges. They may resist change or avoid confrontation. I'm going to put a big one on confrontation. Resist change, I could see that because they tend to be a little more systemized, maybe not so much as a conscientious person, but they do like processes because they care about the details, they care about people. They want to make sure that things don't get dropped or things don't get missed. But as far as confrontation, because they tend to wear their heart on their sleeve and they put their heart into what they do. So for example, if a steadiness person prepares a meal for you, they put their heart into it. They love you, so they want you to experience their food. If you were to critique their food, they would probably have a really hard time because it's not just about the task of serving you food. It's about giving you an experience that's going to bring joy into your life. And if you don't get that joy, they're going to struggle with that because that was the purpose, right? It always comes down to what's the purpose. Dominant people, the purpose is to get the task done. Influential people, kind of really isn't a purpose. That's why they get off track. Steadiness people, the purpose is love. And conscientious people, the purpose is about knocking off a checklist. Okay. The best way to communicate with a steadiness person or a person who's steady would be to be calm, patient, and offer support. And make sure to focus on collaboration. They love working in teams. So if you're building out a team building exercise, make sure you only have one dominant person and have some conscientious and social people in the mix. Influential people, they could be pretty much anywhere. So that would encompass that. Now, on the conscientious side, these are your accountants, your engineers, all these people. Their strengths is they're precise, they're thorough, and they're organized. There's no other way to put it other than they're that. Like, I mean, they create checklists, they think ahead. But the problem with them, which you'll find, is they could be overly critical or hesitant to make decisions or overly concerned with the minor details. So it's like, if you're going on vacation with somebody who's conscientious, make sure to plan to be late because this person is going to be thinking about all the details up until the minute you're supposed to leave and going way past the time when you're supposed to leave because they're thinking about all the different things that need to be done. And, that's why you think about like projects when you deal with engineers and so on, when you deal with big city contracts, when they go way longer than they should, it's because you got all these engineers arguing back and forth about all these details. And your builders are like, when do we build this? And then you got your people that are working for the city that are for example, your steadiness. They're like, we want to make everybody happy. We want everything to work. And you end up in a mess. So ideally speaking, if you're going to have a conscientious person in your team, you need to have them. And then you have a steadiness person. They're kind of on the opposite end of the scale, but it's hard to get them working together unless you use this program or this training module. When they work together, they actually make a really good team. I typically need to have a conscientious person in my organization in order to make sure that things are organized to keep moving things forward. Any questions about that so far? Okay, we're going to move on. So how do we use DISC in a sales environment? This is the holy grail. I use this still to this day. And that's why I thought it was super valuable for you guys to take this training on, because if you don't know your personality and you don't know the personality of the people that you're working with, you're really selling yourself short. Let me give you an example. if I'm going to a house and I'm a highly dominant person and I've got a husband and wife and I want to list their property, me being me, the person I am, I want to know how quickly I could get out of there. When I get a listing signed, I want to get it done. I want how quickly I could get out of the market and how fast I could get this sold so I can move on to the next listing. That is literally the story of my life. Now, if I go into a listing and both the husband and the wife are conscientious, I'm going to go in with a very basic presentation that's got the basic information. I'm focused on what's important. We're going to list your house at the right price. We're getting on the market as quickly as possible. We're going to make sure all of our systems and processes are in place to ensure that we get this done effectively and for the best price in the shortest amount of time, right? We've all heard the slogans. That's the reality of it. I'm going to get your house sold. We're going to move on. If I don't realize that the people I'm sitting across from are conscientious, I'm not getting the listing because they're going to go, whoa, 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 whoa. Tell us more about your marketing strategy. I want to know line by line by line. They'll sit you down there. It'll go 3 hours long and they're going to just hammer you with questions. If you're not ready and you haven't pre-prepared knowing that these people are conscientious or prepared in the event that they're conscientious, that you're going to adjust your approach, you're not getting the listing. Your closing ratio, a dominant person with a conscientious person closing ratio, unless they're like a hardcore closer and you pressure people to the point where they're uncomfortable and they sign just so that you leave, and then they're scared to call you back to cancel the listing, you're not getting it. And by the way, I know people like that. They're hardcore closers and they just go for the kill. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's how you want to run your business, there's no problem. But there's an other way to do it, which is going to be a little more gentle, and it just requires a little more footwork on your part. So tailoring your approach to clients. D, dominant. What are their values? What they value. They like results, they like efficiency, and they like control. So one of the advantages of having a dominant client is that they're going to be fairly quick to close because they want to make a decision, get it done. You ever walk out of a listing presentation took 20 minutes? You're like, wow, that was easy. Wow, that was cool. Mind you, if you were prepared. Well, that's probably because you were dealing with a dominant person or two dominant people as a couple. They respect, especially if you were dominant, that they were efficient. Chances are if you get out of a listing presentation in 20 minutes, chances are you're dominant and chances are your clients are dominant. I just don't see a conscientious person taking 20 minutes to do a listing. I just don't see it. It's like me and Jason, we do our listings way different, right? Jason's more conscientious. That's why the partnership works. Jason and I work well together because he's conscientious and I'm highly dominant. The dominant person does like control though. So you're going to sign that listing really quick. You're going to get out there and think, oh, this is going to be a breeze. It's going to be easy, until you realize decisions need to be made. These people typically are going to want to be involved, at least in the sense that they want to have the final say on things. So be prepared to understand that your client needs to be involved. So make sure with them that you're direct. Okay. Number one, be direct. Focus on the bottom line. And what does that mean is, hey, the purpose here, the bottom line is to sell your house for $580,000. Everything else is how we're going to get there, but the outcome is $580,000. Are we in agreement? Yes. Boom. Dominant. They're happy. Okay. Avoid small talk. They literally don't want it because then they're like, okay, what's your pitch? What's your sale? Let's get this done. I'm happy to work with you, but I don't really care. I want to get this house sold. That's the purpose. And let's move on. You could have small talk after if you want to have a relationship with your client. And I always encourage building the relationship, but keeping in mind, dominant people, that's not what you're there for. That's not what they're after. So save your energy. Emphasize the benefits of your product and service in terms of efficiency, right? Make sure that you show them how efficient you're going to be, because they don't want to have somebody who's going to call them and deal with a price adjustment and then spend an hour and a half on the phone. I had a hard week and blah, blah, blah. And they're going to be like, oh my God, shoot me. What do you want? You want a price adjustment? Fine, take it. Right? So find ways to save them time, find ways to improve their competitive edge. Like, what are you guys going to do that's going to make you better than your competition? They love hearing that. And then don't waste time on lengthy explanations. So for example, this presentation I'm doing, if you're dominant, you're probably not even paying attention anymore. Unless you really see the value, I probably lost you. My conscientious people, you're probably taking notes. My sociable people are probably thinking all the ways they could apply this in their lives. and they're excited to hear the rest of the course and move on with the rest. The influential people are probably in another room talking to somebody and they forgot that they were on a conference call. Facts. So influential clients, if you're still in the room, what do you guys value? You value relationships, excitement, and recognition. So sales rallies, influential people love it. I know that because I'm a DI. In my first real sales job, we used to have these monthly sales conferences. I loved going to these conferences and getting awards. It was like that. The money was great, but the best part about it was definitely the awards. They value relationships. So why? Because they like to have conversation, and these people like excitement. So they like to have engaging conversations. They don't like people to be monotonous or tone deaf. Okay. So how to sell with them? Build rapport and be enthusiastic. So these are the people, it's not going to be a 20-minute sale. If you're going to try and do a 20-minute sale, they're going to be disappointed because they're going to feel like you're just using them. Point click. They're going to be like, well, I thought we had something going on. We had to be friends. Like, these are going to be clients for life, and they'll be friends for life if you take care of them in the way that you want. Make sure to be enthusiastic, build rapport. Highlight the personal benefits and how your product or your production or your commission or your approach to the business can improve their lifestyle or help them stand. So what this means is, what are the components of your approach that are going to make their life easier? So for example, because you have a great sales system and you have a great operation, you have all this experience, you do really good, you'd be like, listen, at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday night. So let me back up. Imagine that you're going for sale by owner. This purpose is like, oh, I'm super good. I could talk to people and I'm good. And I could do this myself. So what I would say to them, if they're influential, let's say, okay, let me ask you a question. 5 o'clock on Tuesday night, the sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. Your five closest friends, because they probably have like 20 friends. They're influential. Say your 5 closest friends call you. They're like, yo, we're going to a patio. We're going to have some drinks. We're going to have some dinner. It's going to go long. And there's a jazz festival after. You want to come? And you're like, I have 2 showings. The influential person is going to hire you so that they could go enjoy their lives and not be burdened by the muckiness and the weeds and the minutia of selling their house on their own. Just as an example. I think that's very fitting. So use stories and testimonials. I almost forgot that one. When you're dealing with influential people, they put a lot of credibility in relationships. They love referrals. So when you're talking to influential people, make sure that you offer up people that have worked with you that are also influential, that could have a conversation with them, that they can say, oh, this person sounds trustworthy. If you give a dominant person as a referral, they'll be like, so how do you do? It was good. How do you like working with them? It was good. What was the best thing about working with them? Sold my house. That's dominant. I'm exaggerating for the purpose of the exercise, but you guys get it. Make sure this is the thing about understanding this program. Make sure to pair and mix and match. It's really important. Then you're sociable. These people value trust, stability, and collaboration. So social proof is always a really good thing. So when you're going to somebody who's sociable, it's good to have your track record of your sales history. How many sales you've done? What's your average list price to sales price ratio? They're going to want to have some of the details because they are more organized and systemized. They're not fully conscientious, but oftentimes I find that your S's and your C's, there's a high S with a C or high C with an S. They tend to coincide. There is some DC, but it's not that common. And when they are, those people are legends. They tend to be CEOs of companies, are people who are high D with a C or high C with a D. So creating a work environment that's stable for conscientious people, for sociable people, is super important because they need to feel comfortable. They're all about comfort. That's why, in a relationship, if one of the family members, the father or the mother, is highly sociable, they're going to be the best to be working with the young children, typically speaking. So how to sell to them? You want to focus on building a relationship over time. Okay. So make sure to be really patient and consistent and demonstrate that what you're going to do is going to bring reliability. So these people want to know that when can they call you? What can they expect when they call you? What times of the day are you available? So it's really important with them, typically speaking, you give them a schedule. So that, for example, if they call you at 10 a.m. on a Monday and 10 a.m. on a Thursday and 10 a.m. on a Friday, because that's when they have a window, but that's the time when you're in a Zoom conference call or training, they're going to get upset because they're going to feel like you're avoiding them. So it's really important for them to communicate a schedule and to build out a metric that they can be stable and consistent and happy with. That hence the schedule, stability and consistency. Okay. So, right. Sorry. Last one. Sociable people don't like to be rushed into a decision. Sociable and conscientious, actually, but they don't like being rushed or hard closed. So sometimes, even if you don't push for a hard close, you may end up actually closing them because they don't like the fact that they're being pressured. And as a matter of fact, if you come on a little bit stronger with them at the beginning, they're going to feel that and they're actually going to start to pull away from you if they start to feel pressure early on. So make sure that you're super relaxed, even your body language with sociable people. If you're leaning in and you're kind of like taking their space, you'll probably find that they're going to start to lean back and start to kind of say, right? Especially if your language is strong, you're coming on strong, your body language is strong, you're going to turn them off 100%. Okay. So even like when you're having a reprimand conversation with somebody who's sociable, if it's an employee or an assistant or so on, when you're dealing with a person like that, you're going to have like that feedback sandwich, right? Which is like positive, negative, positive. Start with something positive, finish with the feedback that's negative, and then end it with something positive. Failure to do that with a sociable person, they may end up quitting. If you do that too many times, they're just going to feel unvalued. They're going to feel like there's no relationship, and this is just a job, and it's just a job to them. They're just gonna leave. But if they feel like there's a relationship, they'll be loyal to you. Very similar, like the influential people. That's why they're loyal. So conscientious. What do these people value? These people value accuracy, details, and quality. Simply put, when you're crossing a bridge or you're on a plane, if you trust that this thing is going to get to where it needs to go and it's not going to fall or cause you to die, that's because there was somebody that was conscientious that was involved in the process. 1000%. No bridge or spaceship or plane or boat that was built was done by somebody who was not highly conscientious. This one is one of my favorite to describe because it's so simple and it's a very specific group of people that fall in this category. Okay, accuracy, detail, and quality. Makes sense, right? So how do you sell to these people? You have to provide thorough information. You have to provide data and facts. So make sure that when you show up to their listing, if I'm using listing as an example predominantly, but make sure you have your facts lined up. Make sure that you're ready to go. If you're not ready to get pushed back, like they're going to challenge you on your facts, like, oh, I sold X amount of homes. Can you prove it? Can you show me your record? Where did those numbers come from? Right? They're going to ask you these things because that's their job. Like that's what they do. That's their way of life. Right? Have you ever like been in a relationship with somebody who's always asking why about this? Why about that? There's people that are just annoying, but generally speaking, conscientious people, they're going to be those people who ask a lot of questions and they're going to challenge you on everything you do. So if you're in a relationship because somebody challenges you on just about everything you do, remember that it's not because they don't like you or they distrust you. It's just their nature to do the checks and balances to make sure that everything is where it needs to be in order to give them the safety and the security and the comfort to move forward, because they tend to be nervous people. And the way that they address the nervousness is to put things in a secure place where they're comfortable with, and then they can start to be more of themselves. That's a great way to get them to open up. Any questions about this so far? Here's a fun thing. Anybody in this can think of one personality type. It's such a hard word for me to say. I don't know why, the L. It's like I slur. So one personality type that I've highlighted that you could think of in your life that maybe you are or somebody you know. I just want to break this up for a second so I don't like put you guys to sleep. Love for somebody to come up with a personality of a person and an aha moment that you just experienced. Share if you can. Somebody's got to come forward. I'm going to wait for at least like a minute until somebody speaks up. Aveen, do you have access to a mic? Can you chime in? I'd love to hear.
I do have access to a mic, so I just heard what you said about the why, and they're just trying to understand and make their decision.
Yeah.
I never really thought about that before. I just took it as them not trusting me.
Right. Wow. Wow. That's a really good aha moment. So, Aveen, when somebody is, say, highly conscientious and they're always asking you why, if I can ask, what's your personality type? Where do you fit? Is there anything in here that speaks to you?
I have no idea. I can't figure it out. I know I'm not dominant,
Definitely
but
not.
definitely not. But
Do you think that you might be more on the sociable side?
I think I'm a mix. It's hard to tell. I
Yeah.
think I'm a mix between like C and S.
Yeah. That would
Yeah.
make sense. That would make sense. You're probably, let's say it this way. If you have a task to complete, what's the first thing you think of when you're going to start that task? What's the first thing you think of before you tackle a task? Like, what's your first thing?
Like the different ways I can do it.
The different ways you could do it. Okay.
Yeah.
And how would you engage in getting the task done? What's the, like, okay, the different ways, then what?
Which one is like most efficient? I pick that one, I do that way.
The one is the most efficient. Okay. Do you have
Yeah.
a lot of checklists?
No. Like I
So
do in
you're,
my head.
so you're sociable.
No way.
Yeah. If you were highly conscientious, if it was your most predominant, you would have checklists for sure.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, now I know.
And this is like very, very high level. And what I mean by high level, not important or high. High level means like we're not in the weeds on the detail. Like if we get you a test and it goes really deep into your personality type, it may uncover other parts where you make decisions that may show that you are conscientious, because it's not as easily as, do you have checklists? Because otherwise there would be a question, or it'd be one question. It would be that easy. But if you're sociable, if you're conscientious, it generally means that you're going to have checklists. You focus really on the details. You may take longer to do tasks than you should, and you'll spend hours and hours and hours like perfectionists.
No, that's not me at all.
Yeah, conscientious people tend to be perfectionists.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, but you probably have a conscientious component to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you are more sociable. So you're supportive. You're probably very patient. You love to collaborate and work with people. You think about their feelings and their emotions,
Yeah,
right?
this is the one. Okay, perfect. We
There you
figured it
go.
out.
Okay, so a sociable person working with a conscientious person is going to, you tend to work well with them because you care about their feelings, you care about their emotions. So the conscientious people feel, they may not feel supported per se because they're not getting the information the way that they want it, but
Mm-hmm.
the conscientious person is going to at least appreciate that they're heard, and that the sociable person is going to work with them in order to get to the positive outcome, even if that means missing timelines, missing deadlines, and the outcome not being the way it should, because they're like, we have to focus on all this stuff. And you're like, okay, well, if that makes you happy, okay, we go with that, right? If that makes you happy, that's a sociable person. A dominant person does not say that, by the way. It's gonna make you happy, not a chance. Like, forget it, right? A conscientious person, good, yeah, it will make me happy, right? It's like, okay, good. Dominant and conscientious will both say that, right? So the reason why I wanted that exercise, guys, is to really start thinking in your life, who are your people you're working with. So when Aveen mentioned that there's somebody in her life that says why a lot, that was a really good observation. It's not because they don't trust you. It's because they don't trust anything, in a sense that until it's tried, tested, understood, and ratified, right? That's why engineers put a seal on something. So if I come to an engineer, by the way, and I have a document and it's got a seal on it, unless it's a seal that they know and understand, they're going to question, okay, where did that person get their seal? What university did they come from? They specialize in the field that they wrote this art for. They will literally look at it and they will evaluate the seal. If you give me an engineer seal, like, I'm like, okay, well, the engineer qualified it, so it's good. I'm not going to go online and like Google the engineer. That's what a conscientious person would do, right? You'd be like, oh my God, for the love of God, there's an engineer seal. You're an engineer. Why do you not just accept it? They're like, well, I need to know who this engineer is. Like, what if he doesn't do a good job? Because in their own field, they're finding in their team, right? Checks and balances. Does that make sense for everybody?
Marc?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Joelle.
So I heard what you said about all of these different personality types, but if I'm a certain personality type and I'm dealing with someone else, how easy would it be for me to adjust to them, knowing that I'm also different?
That's a good question. So the question that Joelle is asking is, if you're working with somebody that has a particular personality type and you have a personality type, why is it that you need to change how you are to accommodate them? Is that what it is?
No, how easy would it be? Because I'm also set in my ways.
Well, it's actually easier than you think when you understand why the person is the way that they are. So, for example, as Aveen mentioned, if the person says, why, if you think that's because they're questioning you, you in your mind think that their intention is not that they're trying to understand, but you think that their intention is that they don't trust you. So then your emotions get involved, and then there typically ends up with conflict. So let me give you an example. Conscientious person, I'm dominant. Okay. So if I'm dealing with somebody who wants checklists, who wants all this stuff, I'm going, say we're going to, I'm going on a hunting trip with a conscientious person. This person is going to have bins that are numbered, organized. There's going to be Ziploc bags inside in case something breaks, and there's water. There's going to be all this stuff. Literally, I'm going to show up with a bag that shoved a bunch of stuff in, and I probably will forget half my things, but I'll have my gun and I'll have my bullets, probably, and maybe some underwear, right? Like I may have what I need, because like my job is to get out there on time, tag the animal, get it done, and then go home, right? The conscientious person is thinking about the entire process from start to finish. This person's gonna be legit. By the way, my favorite people to travel with, like, so my wife is highly conscientious. She's probably laughing in the background hearing this. She's like, yep. Like, we're going somewhere. And she's like, no, don't pack. Please don't. I'll pack. Because otherwise you run around out of stuff. So it's that, but that's what it is. So when you understand the person that you're working with and you understand yourself, you know how the things you do might irritate them, and you just don't want to do that, because we all good people in a sense, right? We all want to bring good to the lives of others, generally speaking, when we understand, right? So you're actually going to respond and deal with them in a way that is going to accommodate both of you. I don't know if that answers. Does that answer your question, or do you need more clarification?
Well, kind of. I think you're getting there. So I have to act in a way that accommodates both. I'm all in on the understanding part. I'm usually an understanding person. It's just I want to see how I can further, like, how easy would it be, or like what do I need to be equipped with, in order to maybe work with a dominant person, and how, like, will I even succeed and kind of meeting their needs, or like, how diverse do I need to be into this whole assessment? And also, how will I know exactly what the other type is? Like, do I send them a disc assessment before I meet with them?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question, Joelle. So the question that Joelle asked is, how do you, I'm going to summarize, but how do you know the personality type of the person you're working with? And how do you come equipped with the tools you need in order to best work out the communication, the situation? The real answer here is, first and foremost, is that you're never going to know without a shadow of reasonable doubt what they are, but you'll have a generally good idea. And even if you're off the mark a little bit, you're at least in the ballpark. You're not completely out to lunch, because you understand that there is a personality type. So even if you're hovering in and around there, you're going to be closer than if you didn't understand that to begin with. You understand that the key here is understanding. Understand yourself and understand the other person. Okay. So Joelle, for example, I'm starting to get to know you a little bit. I'm getting a sense that you are sociable as well, like Aveen.
Yeah.
And typically mothers, right? Generally speaking, you're going to be sociable because you're caring for children. Like it just makes sense, right? Because you're sociable and I'm dominant, if you're wanting to accomplish something where you and I are involved in a project, understanding that I'm dominant, if you wanted to get me to agree with you with what we said before, what's the best way to get me to agree?
Just getting straight to the point.
Bingo. There you go. Gold star. Check mark.
Oh, yes, thanks.
Yeah, it's that
A
simple.
star on my forehead.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's really that simple. What I want to say too, guys, is like I'm covering a lot of content, and because I'm trying to be with the stars. I'm
Thanks,
covering a lot of
Evan.
content, so I'm trying to blast you guys like what typically would. My first time I took this course, it was a full weekend, right? I had a binder this thick, right? I'm trying to condense this in an hour, right? So it's like I'm trying not to regurgitate a whole bunch of stuff and you guys just kind of tune out. That's why I wanted to leave a little more engagement at the end, because it's really important that we engage on this so that you retain some of the information. But reasonably speaking, simple is bliss. So what Joelle, you said, that's perfect. If you're dealing with the dominant, right to the point. Now, if we're dealing with an influential person, if I was influential, Joelle, you can answer, or anybody else can answer. How do you get me to agree with you?
Referencing to someone else we worked
Oh,
with,
nice.
high profile.
Really good. That's a really good answer. Yeah, that's a really good answer. Absolutely. Using references, right? Or saying, so Joelle would say, hey, Marc, you know what? I was talking to Jason about this listing, and Jason listed the house down the street, and he listed at 580 and he sold it in 5 days, full asking. And it was super great. And the clients loved it. Everybody was happy. I think we should list at 580. I'm like, oh, Jason said so? I know Jason. Jason's cool. I trust Jason. Cool. Bingo. Another way for influential is to talk it out. Have a conversation about it. It's like, do it over coffee. It's going to get done. Make it personal. Make it engaging. Make it dynamic. Be enthusiastic. You know, like people get into a idea session as a group. Here's the thing. I'm going to give you guys probably have all done this. You get in a room with a group of people, either friends, collaborators, business partners, whatever, and you guys are planning something. Okay. 4 hours goes by. You guys have had crazy, amazing ideas. I don't deny that. But at the end of the meeting, you guys have no idea what to do next. Anybody experienced this before? I call them idea parties. Maybe not, but it happens. Those is if you have a group of influential people and they're just talking themselves into a frenzy, but the objective gets lost, right? They forget, like, what's the point of this meeting? Like, what's the plan? What are we doing? That would be a dominant person or even a conscientious person. So lastly, I did dominant, I did influential, sociable. We didn't do sociable, but how do you get sociable people to agree with you?
And just be more lenient, maybe more relaxed with the approach.
Yeah, be supportive, be patient, collaborate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, patient, collaborative, like make sure they're involved in the decision, make sure they feel like they're heard and they're part of the process.
And lastly, maybe get them to make the decisions. Like present everything to them and then
well, you know what'll happen with a sociable person if you try to get them to make a decision? What do you think they're going to say?
They're not ready.
They're going to say, not ready, or I say, hey, Joelle, you're sociable. Like, I wonder, what do you think? Do you think we should list the property at 580 or at 600? And then I give you my pitch. Right.
Yeah.
But you know what, typically speaking, if we're co-listing, right? We're two listing agents. You're going to go, Yeah, here's what I think. Da, 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 da. But what do you think?
Yeah, true.
But what do you think? Right? That's a typical question of a sociable person. But what do you think? You're not going to hear that from a conscientious person, and you're not going to hear that from a person who's predominantly dominant, unless they have a DI or a DS, or maybe even the DC, but not really. Then lastly, conscientious person. If you need to make a conscientious person come into agreement with you, how do we do that?
Present the more details, the more plan you have for them, and the more data you have, I guess.
Yeah, come with a pitch deck, a Gantt chart, an org chart, a checklist, a process, a system, everything validated and checked in the back. Like, come ready, like, and be prepared to stay there a while. And you better not get frustrated, because they want to know everything, all of it, and they probably still won't say yes. They're gonna need to go back and go, oh, this is good, yeah, thank you. Can I keep copies of all this? I just want to go through it over the next like 7 months, and I'll get back to you. You're like, huh? And then they'll send you like 8 emails. I'm
Yeah,
exaggerating.
I'm
I'm
dealing with one
exaggerating,
right now.
but right, yeah. And you're like, oh my God, can we please make a decision? They're like, don't rush me. I don't make decisions like that. No. Right? So I have to go. Yeah. Bye, Angel. Yeah. So that in a nutshell is pretty much, that's your conscientious person. And you're not exaggerating, she says. That's funny. Nobody took notes. I forgot ideas. Love it. So that actually encompasses what I wanted to cover. Any other questions? Anyway, I actually did that 51 minutes. I'm actually quite impressed with myself.
Hi, this is Austin. Just want to thank you very much for that very informative meeting. A lot of great information. Dealing with people with different personalities. I took a lot of notes. I have a question in regards to language barrier. I have a client that I met that I got a property for and we're closing, but it was just hell from the beginning, middle to end. They approached me in tears, telling they're in their mid 50s to 55s. They've been renting all their life. They never bought a home ever. They won't buy a home now because they're in a very, very bad environment, in an apartment that they were coming home and their Amazon deliveries were getting stolen. Their peers, they just wanted to get out of the environment. They wanted to get into a townhome. Their numbers were good, no problem. They work with a mortgage person that I work very, very closely with. The approval was done. The client then were passed to me, and I explained to them beginning, middle to end on what type of thorough plan we're going to work with, what the numbers that you're approved with, and we're only going to look at properties within your budget that you're approved for. Everything was clear. The problem I have with them is their communication. Zero communication whatsoever by email, zero communications by text. When we put an offer on a property and we have correspondence with the lawyers and the other realtors, zero communications. The only communication they had with me is after the home inspection. The home inspection passed with flying colors. The home inspector pointed out 1-2 minor things, and based on those minor things, they want to walk away from the home. So my question is, people, they don't, how did someone take my professional versus their experience? If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So thank you for your question. If I'm understanding you correctly, you've got a client. Now, we're going to say it's a very challenging client. Their capacity for communication is not great. Now, the question I need to ask on that is, do they communicate via phone? Like, how do you communicate with them?
I communicate them verbally. I communicate by text messages. I communicate by email.
How often do you speak to them? Like,
at some points, I'll speaking to them. I will send messages maybe 3-4 times a day, and I will speak to them maybe once or twice a week. I understand that the wife's schedule was here as a nurse and the husband's schedule was working from home. So getting them both on the same page was impossible.
What does the husband do?
created a group chat between the three of us. So the information can be passed consistently. And again, zero communication.
What does the husband do?
The husband works from home.
Yeah.
And the wife is works night shift as a nurse, and she's always on call. So she could be working 40, 50, 60 hours.
Who's the decision maker?
Pardon me?
Who's the decision maker?
Great question. We found out through the process. We started with the husband, but it actually ended up being the wife.
Yeah. Yeah. So that could have gone both ways. I could have thought the decision maker is the husband, and the husband's not organized because the wife is on the sociable side and she's not available. But the wife is not available, so she's the decision maker, which
Correct.
means that the husband works from home. Do you know what he does from home? Like, what's his field of work?
What's his field for work? I know it has something to do with online. So he's in front of a computer.
He's an IT guy, probably of some sort.
Something along that guy. So a little bit more communication with him, but he started off with all the questions. We gave all the answers, but the wife comes home at the middle of the night, and I guess their communication is not the best as a husband and wife should be after 50 years. And she has the questions, and instead of addressing them to me, she's coming to her own conclusions. Again, there's a lot here set in their mind based on that.
So what we're dealing with here is there's the personality assessment side of things, right? Which is how we're going to effectively communicate, right? She's sociable if she's a nurse, more likely, right? More than likely. So, pardon me?
Both are antisocial. Huge language barrier as well. That's another thing I want to add.
Like they don't speak English very well.
Correct, sir. Correct.
So first suggestion I'll give you, if you're going to communicate via email or text, what's their language?
What is their primary? Their primary language? French.
Chat AI. Go to Chat GPT, text in English what you want to write, ask it to translate it into French, and send it to them. When they send you a response in French, put it back in Chat AI and translate back into English.
Okay, Chat GPT.
Yeah, it's a language model. It's number one most prominent tool. Its use is language. It's the language king. So if you want to increase your capacity for communication, use the Chat GPT to communicate with them in their mother language. It will make things more effective.
What if the communication is thorough, but they're like returning my call, returning my email, get back to me by this time is 0. Like,
well, that generally is a conversation we had.
We had 30 minutes before the offer ended, and the real calling me with smoke out of his ear. And I'm on the phone with them trying to get them on the phone. And when they call me, they're like, well, we want to walk away from the house because we didn't like what the inspection said. I go, it passed with flying colors. It's a 20-year-old. And I understand that they're first-time buyers. So I put myself in their shoes, and I'm very sympathetic along each step of the way. But it's connecting with them. So everything that you mentioned and, taking these beginning steps, making sure you're on the same page, I did with these clients. And I don't want to say the word they didn't respect my time, but they didn't respect the instructions and the flow and the direction of getting the deal done. They didn't respect the lawyer's time. They didn't respect the realtor's time. I don't care about not respecting my time. I wanted them to really understand the importance of clear communication within a timely manner when we're first.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm good at what I do, and teaching is part of what I do. And, I've been doing it for a long time, but there's also some people that are just not going to be easy to work with. Like in my 14-year career where I'm at in real estate, people like that, oftentimes I just won't work with them. Right. If they just don't respect my time, and I tell them, I say, hey guys, like, listen, if you're going to work with me, really, I love working with you. You seem like great people. I always do this in person, ideally, or via phone at worst. I say, but I can't effectively do my job representing your interests if you don't communicate with me, because I am not allowed to make decisions without you. And my job is to solve problems. And as the problems arise, I need to understand how you see the problem, what outcomes are you hoping for, and then by collaborating with you, I could come up with solutions. But the most important part is communication. If I don't know where you stand on any particular problem, and I have to wait until the last minute to address it, everybody's all fired up. The seller on the other side is going to be frustrated with the lack of communication and they're less likely to work with you on a solution if they don't feel like you're respecting their time. We understand that you have a schedule. However, it's imperative and most important that we find ways and times by, I know you're on call, but say, hey, right now, if you're not on call and you're not sleeping, let me know day by day what your day's going to look like. And then if there's a change, let me know. That way we have a good understanding of where to go and I can best represent you. If I can't get this from you guys, we can't, then unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to work with you because I don't feel comfortable. I'm not giving you the best service. I'm not really earning my living. I'm just doing a transaction for you and I don't feel comfortable doing that. That's how I go about it. And if you're not scared to lose a deal, I still do it, but part of the training I always say, never be scared to lose a sale, never be scared to lose a client, never be scared to fire somebody, because oftentimes when you put your foot down, 7 or 8 times out of 10, they're actually going to come around and use you if you deliver that message in a way that's not threatening, that's empathetic, that's loving, and that also shows that you're just trying to give them better service. You will have a positive outcome. It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. And we will always assume the worst. But in sales, we can't do that. Otherwise, people will walk all over you.
Absolutely. I feel that their intentions is not to walk over. Everything you said, I applied 80%. Sad thing is at the end of the day, when we got everything done, they look at me and they like, well, you didn't really put our best interest forward. And I was like, wow, like I could not.
I can't do that. If you don't communicate with me, I can't. And you're a living proof of it right now. You'd say you're right. By the way, saying you're right works. You're like, guys, you're right. Try that. Guys, you're right. I have not been representing you as well.
Okay.
I haven't been doing so because I'm not getting the feedback from you that I need in order to be a great realtor for you guys. I know I'm a great realtor, but if I don't know what you guys need and we're not respecting timelines and the other side's always frustrated, and when they're frustrated, they don't want to help you. They want to work against you. I'm running uphill. So for me to best work for you, to give you the best service that I know I can give you, I need for you to commit to communicating with me effectively. Can I get that?
Amazing. Controlling the conversation. I love it.
Yes.
Appreciate that with those words.
My pleasure, man. All right, guys. Gotta love you and leave you. Thank you so much for investing in your careers and to better yourselves and to move forward. These are the types of things that will lead to a bright and fruitful career, making sure that you're always learning and always getting better. I commend you, I applaud you, and I look forward to seeing you at the next training. You guys have a wonderful and blessed week.
Thank you for